I want to tell you about the human. I want to tell you because nobody believed me when I filed my report, and I need someone in this galaxy to understand what I saw on Morhast. My name is Torvak. I am a Krethin, which means I stand 7 feet tall. I am covered in scales the color of iron, and I have been a drill instructor at the Galactic Coalition Joint Species Military Academy for 14 years. I have trained warriors from 200 species. I have seen recruits who could spit acid, recruits who could crush stone with their bare hands, and recruits whose blood was literally poison. I thought nothing could surprise me anymore. Then Kara Voss showed up. The day the new intake roster arrived, I stood on the parade ground of our fortress on Duran 4 and watched the recruits file off the transport ships. There were Gorath warriors, each one a mountain of tusks and armored plate. There were Velesi shock troops with their 4 arms and their acid glands pulsing under translucent skin. There were Junari, tall as trees and quiet as shadows. Every single one of them had been selected because their species sat at the top of their planet's food chain. That is the rule of the Academy. We train the best predators the galaxy has to offer. And then, walking between 2 Gorath who could have used her as a toothpick, there was the human. I checked my datapad 3 times. Kara Voss, Homo sapiens, female. Height, 5 feet and 4 inches by their measurement. Weight, 54 kilograms. No cybernetic augmentation, no venom glands, no natural armor, no claws. I looked at her standing in formation, this pale, soft little thing with her brown hair pulled back and her hands clasped behind her, and I thought the same thing everyone else was thinking. Someone had made a terrible mistake. Humanity had only joined the coalition 12 years ago. Most species still considered them a provisional member, a mid-tier species from a mid-tier death world that had somehow figured out space travel before it figured out how to stop arguing with itself. They were known for 2 things: endurance running and stubbornness, neither of which seemed particularly useful in a combat academy, surrounded by creatures that could bite through starship plating. On the first day, a Gorath named Drukan decided to make things clear. Drukan was 8 feet of scaled muscle, with tusks as long as my forearm, and a reputation that had followed him from 3 systems. He walked directly into Kara's path during formation, and shoulder-checked her so hard she stumbled and nearly fell. The platoon laughed. 40 different species, 40 different sounds, all meaning the same thing. She does not belong here. Kara picked herself up. She did not cry. She did not shout. She did not report him. She just looked at Drukan with these calm, steady brown eyes, like she was reading something written on the inside of his skull. Then she returned to her position in line. I noted the moment and moved on. I assumed she was in shock. Over the next few weeks, my assumption seemed correct. Kara finished last in every strength test. She was the slowest in the speed drills, which was hardly fair since half the platoon had 4 legs. In natural weapons sparring, she was useless, because she had no natural weapons. The other recruits started calling her Snack in trade common, not behind her back, to her face. She never reacted. She just watched them with those quiet eyes. I began filling out the paperwork for an honorable discharge. I even sent a private message to my commanding officer. The humans sent us a mistake, I wrote. She does not belong here. I felt genuine pity for her. She seemed like a decent enough creature. She simply was not built for this world. Then came the behavioral evaluation, and everything I thought I knew began to crack. The midterm psych assessment drops recruits into a holographic combat simulation, designed to measure decision-making under extreme fear. The environment generates threat scenarios calibrated to each species' deepest survival instincts. Most recruits respond in one of 2 ways. They attack, or they flee. Standard predator responses: fight or flight. Every species in the coalition operates on some version of this binary. Kara did neither. I was watching through the observation feed when her simulation activated. A massive holographic predator, something with too many teeth and not enough mercy, came charging out of the false jungle toward her. Every instructor in the room expected her to run. Instead, she stopped moving entirely. Then she did something I had never seen in 14 years of running that test. She changed her posture. She adjusted her breathing. She lowered her gaze at specific intervals and made a low, steady sound from somewhere deep in her chest. She was not cowering. She was not threatening. She was doing something my language does not have a word for. The simulation AI flagged her as an anomaly. It did not know how to categorize a prey-sized organism that responded to a charging predator by trying to communicate with it. The instructors argued for an hour about what her score should be. I sat in the back of the room and said nothing, because for the first time in a very long time, I felt the small, cold feeling at the base of my skull that my species calls the predator's whisper. The instinct that tells you something nearby is more dangerous than it looks. That night, I found Kara sitting alone outside the barracks. I should have reported her for being out after curfew. Instead, I sat down next to her. I do not know why. She looked up at me, this enormous scaled reptile twice her size, and she smiled like I was an old friend. We talked. She told me that on Earth, her species had once shared their world with large pack predators called wolves. Fast, intelligent, with teeth designed for tearing, and instead of wiping them out, humans had done something that I still struggle to comprehend. They had convinced the wolves to live with them, to hunt with them, to sleep beside their children. She called it domestication, but that word does not capture what she described. She said her ancestors did not beat the wolves. They made the wolves believe they were part of the same family. I told her that, on my world, if something has bigger teeth than you either kill it or it kills you. There is no third option. She looked at me with those calm brown eyes and said, "There is always a third option, Instructor Torvak. You just have to be brave enough to try it." I went back to my quarters, and I did not sleep well. After that conversation, I started noticing things I wished I had not noticed. The small pest creatures that infested the base, six-legged vermin we called thrikes, stopped running from Kara. One of them started following her to meals. A perimeter guard beast, a vicious dog-sized predator that had bitten 3 professional handlers, let Kara scratch the underside of its jaw and practically melted into the ground with contentment. And Drukan, the 8-foot Gorath who had knocked her down on the first day, started unconsciously leaving a gap for her in formation. Not out of respect, out of something deeper that he could not name, and probably would have denied if you asked him. Something was happening, and I did not understand it. Not yet. The final evaluation changed everything. We deployed the recruits to Morhast, a quarantined jungle moon used for live survival trials. The objective was simple: survive 72 hours, reach the extraction point, avoid the Vethrak. Vethrak are Category 9 apex predators. Imagine 3 tons of muscle and bioelectric camouflage stretched across 6 limbs, with jaws that can shear through hull metal and 6 eyes that can see in spectrums most species cannot even imagine. They are the reason Morhast is quarantined. They are, by any reasonable measure, among the most dangerous non-sapient creatures in known space. The recruits were expected to avoid them entirely. 24 hours into the trial, a seismic event collapsed a section of the Vethrak nesting grounds. Instead of a few solitary hunters patrolling the jungle, we suddenly had a full migration wave. Dozens of agitated territorial Vethrak sweeping through the forest in a living tide. Communications jammed. 3 squads were scattered in minutes. My command post was overrun. A Vethrak claw caught my leg and opened it from knee to ankle. I dragged myself behind a rock formation and found myself with 7 surviving recruits. One of them was Drukan. One of them was Kara. Drukan did what every predator species does when it meets something bigger than itself. He tried to make himself look dangerous. He stood tall, beat his chest plates, roared with everything his massive lungs could produce. A Vethrak turned toward him, unimpressed, and nearly took his head off with a casual swipe of its forelimb. Drukan scrambled backward, and I saw something I never expected to see on a Gorath's face. Pure, primal terror. He froze. Everyone froze. Everyone except the human. Kara Voss stood up and walked toward the Vethrak. I tried to order her back. My voice came out as a rasp. She did not listen. She walked forward with slow, deliberate steps, and I was certain I was about to watch the smallest recruit in the history of the academy get swallowed whole. What happened next broke something inside my understanding of the universe, and it has never healed. She did not run. She did not fight. She did not freeze. She dropped every response that every species in the galaxy would consider sane, and she made herself known. She controlled her breathing until it was slow and rhythmic. She lowered her gaze at precise intervals. She shifted her weight from foot to foot in a pattern that seemed random, but was not. She made a low, resonant humming sound from deep in her chest. She moved in a slow arc around the lead Vethrak, keeping herself at the edge of its peripheral vision. And everything about her body communicated the same message. I see you. I am not afraid. I am not challenging you. I am something you have never encountered before. The lead Vethrak was a scarred, ancient alpha, easily the largest animal I have ever seen outside of a starship hangar. It turned all 6 of its eyes toward this tiny, soft creature that barely reached its knee. Every recruit behind me held their breath. I could hear my own heartbeat in my skull. The Vethrak lowered its head, not in submission, in something older and stranger, recognition, as if some ancient circuit buried deep in the predator's brain had fired for the first time and whispered, "This one is different." Kara raised one hand, palm open, fingers relaxed, and the most dangerous animal on the moon pressed its massive scarred skull gently against her palm. I have served in 9 campaigns. I have watched stars collapse into darkness. But nothing, absolutely nothing in my life, prepared me for the sight of a 3-ton apex predator bowing its head to a creature it could swallow without chewing. Over the next 6 hours, Kara did not tame the Vethrak. She did not control them. She did something far more unsettling. She integrated. She read their body language, mirrored their social cues, and positioned herself within their group hierarchy in a role that I later learned humans call a shepherd. Not the leader, not a follower, the one who guides. She walked among them, and they moved around her like water around a stone, and she steered the entire migration wave away from the surviving recruits. When a juvenile Vethrak got too close to where I lay bleeding, Kara made a single sharp click with her tongue. The juvenile stopped, looked at her, and backed away. She gave a command, and a Category 9 apex predator obeyed it. The rescue shuttles arrived 4 hours later to find Kara standing in a clearing, surrounded by resting Vethrak, with 7 uninjured recruits and 1 injured instructor sitting calmly behind her. The pilots refused to land for 20 minutes because they were convinced the sensor data was malfunctioning. In the debrief, the truth came out. Kara had not been sent by mistake. Earth's military had sent her deliberately. She was a xenobiological behaviorist, a discipline that exists only among humans because only humans have the neurological architecture to practice it. For their entire evolutionary history, humans have been reading, mirroring, and influencing the social behavior of other species. Wolves, horses, birds of prey, elephants, ocean predators. They have an almost supernatural ability to identify the social structure of any species and insert themselves into it, not through force, through empathy, through patience, through a terrifying willingness to walk towards something that could destroy them, and say, "I think we can be friends." Coalition intelligence told me quietly that humans had already begun bonding protocols with 17 other high-category predator species across coalition space. They were building something the galaxy had no defense against. Not a weapon, a network, a family. The day after the debrief, Drukan found Kara outside the barracks. He stood in front of her, all 8 feet of tusks and armor, and he did something no Gorath has ever done for a non-Gorath in recorded history. He lowered his head and exposed his neck, the deepest gesture of respect his species knows. Kara smiled, reached up on her toes, and gently patted the side of his jaw. After that, Drukan followed her everywhere she went, like an enormous armored shadow with tusks. And that is when I finally understood. She had not just done it with the Vethrak, she had been doing it to all of us. From the very first day, every time she stayed calm when they laughed, every time she watched with those quiet, patient eyes, every time she chose not to fight back, she was reading us, learning us, making herself a part of our world so gently that none of us noticed until it was already done. I sat down that evening and revised my original report. I deleted the line that read, "The humans sent us a mistake," and I wrote something new. Recommendation: do not laugh at the humans. Do not pity them. Do not, under any circumstances, underestimate them. They do not conquer predators. They make predators love them. There is no known defense against this. I paused for a long moment, then added one final line, respectfully requesting reassignment. I have begun saving her a seat at meals, and I do not remember deciding to.